Hi, this is Stephen Andrews, Outlaw Bookseller here. It's still very hot. I've got a terrible t-shirt on. This is one of my oldest but comfiest t-shirts, but it's the right sort of colour for what I want to talk about today. I look like a bit of an old sea dog, and I want to talk about the work of a great contemporary English writer who is much neglected. I want to talk about the work of Howard Cunnell. This is a proof copy of Howard's new novel, The Painter's Friend. This came out in July from Picador, and the real book looks a lot prettier than this. This has been quite bashed about as I've read it. And this is Howard's third novel, and he's somebody that, if you're interested in contemporary British mainstream fiction, you really should read. And don't let those words put you off, because this guy is the real thing. I'm going to talk about his career. This is his new book, as I say, but I'm going to go back in time a bit and talk about his backlist. Well, I was first introduced to Howard's work by a friend I work with. Probably must have been around about 2014, and he told me about Howard, who he'd worked with. They were both booksellers together in a bookshop in Streatham many years ago. And Howard is a little bit younger than me, not by much, a year, 2 years. And this friend recommended me this book, The Sea on Fire, which is also published by Picador. And this isn't a first. I think it's a first printing of the B format. The true first edition is a light blue trade paperback, which I've seen around, but it's not very nice. Shame, sadly, no hardcover. And this is a fantastic book. I read it in one sitting on a summer's day in my back garden, which is why I thought of it today, because it's very hot today. It's very hot then. And just to tell you a bit about Howard Cunnell, he teaches creative writing. He wrote some marvellous essays for the Penguin edition of Jack Kerouac's On the Road, the original scroll version, which is the deluxe Penguin, which has deckled edges, large format, some great essays. And by the original scroll, we mean the form in which Kerouac wrote On the Road. It was a long scroll, like a piece of wallpaper, and famously he typed it out furiously, and Howard did some great essays in the edition of that, which I've read, which are fantastic. And so this was Howard's second novel, and this is the first of his books I read. And Howard has spent some time as a scuba diver, and this is a novel about scuba diving. It's been described as scuba noir, which sounds absurd, but it's absolutely fantastic. You can tell that he has done the underwater thing, because of the way the underwater action this is described. Absolutely beautiful, glittering, incandescent prose describing the sensation of being underwater and underwater life. Really magnificent. This is a novel. It's about a man who lives in London. He's settled down with a woman who has children by a previous partner, and he used to be a diving instructor, and he is visited by an old friend who is still a diving instructor, who says, we've got one last job on the Red Sea, and they go onto this boat in the Red Sea with some very unsavory and interesting characters. And when you read this book, you can taste the salt of the sea, you can feel the sunburn on your skin. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's a book about responsibility, irresponsibility. There's one part where I really sat up and took notice, came out of nowhere, really surprised me, and it's just beautifully written. And the thing I like about Cunnell is he's very gritty, but he's very heartfelt. I would compare him to Tim Winton, who I know he's a big fan of, also Kem Nunn, who wrote the classic surf noir novel Tapping the Source, which if you haven't read, I'll talk about that another time. This is one of the best contemporary mainstream novels I've read in the last 20 years. The Sea on Fire. I thoroughly recommend it. It's a wonderful piece of work with lyrical, gritty, heartfelt prose, amazing descriptions, tight plotting, great characterization, fantastic novel on every level. So that really blew me away. And that got me looking back at Howard's first novel, Marine Boy, which is a kind of quasi prequel to The Sea on Fire. And the characters have a certain similarity, and it's about growing up with an absent father on the south coast of England. The skinhead culture is involved with it, and there are references in The Sea on Fire to the events of Marine Boy. Now, Marine Boy, this was from a very small press, who they called Soul Bay, and it's been reissued recently. Apparently, there's a different cover. This is the 2008 first paperback original, and Howard signed it and dedicated it to me when I met him a few years ago. And that's a fantastic book as well. I mean, the trouble with English fiction is it's so genteel. You know, it's the family, it's relationships, it's all this middle class stuff. But the thing about Howard's books is that they have those things in them, but you know they're not comfortable. They are realistic, and you can relate to them if you're working class. And anybody who likes good prose will love them. Fantastic stuff. To a certain degree, I was reminded of a book called Children of the Sun. The author's name escapes me now. That's a book about Nicky Crane, the famous gay skinhead who appeared on the cover of the Strength Through Eye album. There's fictional characters in it as well. Children of the Sun. It's just been reissued. Check that out. It's really, really good. So that was Howard's first novel, as I say. Back in 2000 and let me just check, 2017, in February 2017, Howard published this autobiographical book, Fathers and Sons, which immediately made me think of Turgenev, you know, the most famous book of Fathers and Sons by the great Russian master. And it's this Picador again. This is his first hardcover, and this is a signed and dedicated first edition. Howard got a nice little dedication in there for me, because at that time he's still not very well known, and he should be. I invited him down to the bookshop I worked in because I really wanted to expose his work to a wider audience, and we had a very small but very appreciative audience for Howard, and it was great to meet him. And he's a really great, lovely guy, and you know he's a great big bear of a man. You know, there's this, I'll show you a picture of him. He's a handsome lad, and you know he's very manly. But at the same time, you know, he's a very sensitive soul. He's interested in the Kerala type of Buddhism, and he's all about sort of healing. You know, he's a good guy, and this is a absolutely gleaming book. It's like light on the water, and it's got some wonderful things about swimming in this as well. But it's about his family life, and normally I run kicking and screaming from anything about that sort of thing. But it's about absent fathers again, rather like in Marine Boy, and it's about how one of his children transitions from one gender to another. And you know, obviously that's a very fashionable thing at the moment, to be writing about. But this is a few years ago, and you know, this wasn't just a marketing opportunity. This is a real thing that Howard and his family and his child went through, and it's just done really, really beautifully, and it had all sorts of acclaim from all sorts of people. And it's the sort of book that really lifts the Picador imprint, because you know Picador lost its way a long time ago. To me, they lost their way when they published Bridget Jones's Diary. Not because they published Bridget Jones's Diary, but the identity of the imprint seemed to fade away. It used to be the definitive B format imprint in the UK for for many decades. People would seek out the Picador spinner in your bookshop. So if you want to read really, really beautiful writing, autobiographical and fictional, go for Howard Cunnell. My personal favourite is The Sea on Fire, which I think is, as I say, a marvellous book. It's almost a thriller. It's got some great nature writing things in there. If you like sort of Robert Macfarlane, anything like that, you'd love this, even though I think he's a much better writer than Macfarlane. And if you just want to read about relationships and feelings of broken relationships, then this is really, really quite something. The new novel, The Painter's Friend, is a departure. All of Howard's books have a lot of sun and sea in them, and you know they've got pain in them, but they have brightness. This is darker. This is set on an island, and it relates to the experiences tangentially of a writer called John Healy, who wrote a book called Grass Arena, which I'm personally not that fussed on, but I know Howard's a big fan of it. So get out there and get yourself a copy of The Painter's Friend. But I would say first, do get a copy of That's Why It's a Proof copy. If it was a finished one, that would have been the end of this video. But do get yourself a copy of The Sea on Fire and give it a try. This is a fantastic book. If I revise my book 100 Must Read Books of Men, I would put this in straight away. Though I know women who've read this and were blown away by it. It really is spectacular. So one of my favourite mainstream novels from the last 10 years. I read it in one sitting. It's ideal for a hot day. It's ideal for anybody who likes the outdoors, the sea. Absolutely Beautiful, beautiful book. Howard Cunnell, The Sea on Fire. Buy it.